Hey friends and music makers, a very warm welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be breaking down the exact steps of how to arrange your track, turning raw musical ideas into a professional polished track. We'll be building on last Sunday's stream, so if you missed it, no worries. I'll quickly bring you up to speed before we dive in deep. Join me as I work through these essential steps to go from a loop to a finished track. As always, feel free to drop your questions in the chats and we'll learn and discover new things together. My goal is to help you level up your music production skills and unlock your creative potential. So without further ado, let's dive into today's stream. Let's move a couple of things out the way here. Let's maybe start with a very quick slide just to remind ourselves when we're arranging a track of what we're actually doing. And I think this is a great slide in the sense that arranging, what is it? It's just the process of making a draft of a piece of music with structure, tension, arc, and contrast. Those are the kind of layers of an arrangement, and it's all to serve the purpose of the music, whatever that purpose may be, the emotion, the feeling, the kind of concept behind the track in the first place. That's the purpose, and then these particular points are what we're trying to do in the arrangement. Now I've got quite far, well, we're up to a reasonable point in this project. This is actually part 4, so there's been 3 parts up to now. And I think that's also interesting in the sense that I'm often asked by people, how long does a track take to produce? And there is no magic answer to that. Some tracks take months, years. We don't know what the purpose is. We don't quite know how to arrange it. There are different parts of the process missing. But if we look at this track, kind of the purpose was fairly clear early on. It's going to be a club track, something I could perhaps play in my DJ set somewhere in the house techno realm with subgenres included. And so far we're 6 hours in, so this would be hour 7. So yeah, I would say 8 hours is often a good figure to maybe say that you've gone from a composition to an arranged track. Probably not mixed down yet, that's another couple of hours as well, but you might have a rough mix and an arrangement and a composition. So sometimes when people talk about doing a track in a day, that might well be possible. This has been split into 4, or after today, 4 different sessions of 2 hours. And I think that works for me normally. I wouldn't try and do composition focus 2 hours and then another focus 2 hours arranging, and then another focus 2 hours arranging, all in the same day. That's an awful lot on the same project. I would generally split it like we've done here, maybe over a period of days or weeks, but a couple of hours working on that stage and then a couple of hours on the next stage. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, anyway, I just thought to mention that, show you that picture, just so we've got the focus. Let's just get the screen set up here and let's do a little bit of a recap. So what we're looking at here is the arrangement so far. We've kind of got ourselves up to the end of the main break here. This is kind of where we sort of more or less reached. So now what we need to do is get from the start of the break, let's say, all the way to the end of the track and get this section arranged here. So that's the bit of the first mission of today. Second mission will be some automation, which up to this point in time there isn't too much, a little bit here or there, and perhaps even a rough mix. So let's do a quick recap. We'll go back in the track a little bit. We don't have to go all the way back to the intro, but let's kind of test levels and play through from, let's say, before this mini break here. Let's play through from there, have a listen, check the levels are working, and then we'll get stuck into making some adjustments. Hello, hello, Normal Norman. How are we doing, my friends? Can you just give us a thumbs up, Normal Norman, that the mic and music is fine? That would be super helpful. Thanks, Normal Norman, much appreciated. All right, so we just got up to speed there. We're listening back, just getting into the groove with the track, reminding ourselves what it is up till now. And now we want to sort of work on this. So we're going to start sort of in this break. What I was just doing was marking a few things white. Now, what am I doing there? That's a little system I use. It's a bit like having a notepad, but instead of a notepad, anything I'm coloring white is a reminder for me to do something to that particular track or clip. So sometimes I'll mark the clip like I've done and change the color to white, or I'll actually mark the track color itself to white. It just means that if I close this project down now and I reopen it in a week's time, which is effectively what's happened today, I kind of understand, okay, there's something I need to visit on that track. And if you even want to go a step further, so white reminds me I need to do something, we could have very easily written ourselves an instruction also in this clip. So in this white clip here, I can rename it. And what I want to do is automate the cutoff of that bass synth frequency. So I could type that in there. And that way that's not stuck in my head and lost when I reopen this project. It's right there. So I use white as a reminder something needs to change in these clips or in these tracks, and I want to revisit that. And I think it's a good way to do this. So this open hi-hats here, again, it's an automation thing. I'd quite like to automate the decay maybe of the hi-hat itself. So yeah, we can write notes to ourselves. We can use a color that makes sure that, as I said, we're organized when we come back in and we open the project, we haven't listened to it, haven't done anything on it for a while, that we understand that there's things to visit. So pretty much all the white I've marked today, or just as we were listening now, was to remind me to look at those tracks for automation, because I think they'll need some automation. So let's bring the loop in to the start of the main break. What we might do already is do a couple of things on the other side of the break. I'm going to take the kick all the way to where I think the outro could be, and I'm just going to move a few clips around as well. I'm not sure if I'll use the alternative bassline MIDI clip. So that's what that is. That's another bass pattern that I have compared to this pattern, which is an octave up from memory. Also the clap we might bring right across, as that might well go almost to the outro. Closed hi-hat, clip 3. So we can probably see I've used 3 in the very intro. 2 was the next move, and then I went to 1, which, as you can see, is a layered pattern. It had a lot more elements to it. So perhaps, you know, 3 might happen at the very end here. We might do a bit of that. We could even switch again over to 2, so we could copy a little bit of this over. Perhaps that's something we'll end up doing, is using a bit of both of those over there. The open hi-hat, don't really need a duplicate of it. It's here. Might take that through to this idea of a bridge, thinking a bridge here, perhaps, down through here. Maybe earlier or later. So perhaps the open hi-hat will end there. So I'm just doing this through my thoughts for the moment. Also, these percussion patterns, we've been using a lot of 3. Why not use 1? That's variation. 3 was a stripped down pattern of this percussion. It's drum rack. 1 is much more fuller. We've got 2 and a 4 as well, so lots of options there. So we might just drag those away from the track for now. Also, we've got the lead sequence. I kind of like that it switched to 2, so it's a different sequence here. So it's quite different, which I think could be really nice after the break to go into that. So I think that is definitely going to stay. Main is what we've been using before. Maybe we come back to that, but we will see. So perhaps the sequence is going to stretch right across here. Things like these little vocal down and ups, we might have some of those sort of spread around a bit. Actually 2 is pretty similar to 1 here, but the reversed one here is quite useful. So we might have one of those at the end of the bridge, maybe one at the end of the outro somewhere here, just to signal the outro. We will see about that in a moment. Also the chord pad, maybe that'll come back in here somewhere towards the outro. What are we using here? Again, we've got multiple clips of it. So we've got a kind of simple chord clip early on in the arrangement. That's clip 1. Clip 3 is triads. And so we've just been alternating between those. So this is all coming from, you know, right back in day 1, in the very first part of this series of, you know, building up this track. We've also got an arpeggio, which we haven't used at all yet, which sounds like this. So a nice kind of sequence, so we might use that. And we also haven't used these chops of the vocal atmos. We might drag those over, but they could be something we could put in the outro, and we might decide here whether the vocal comes back in here in the break, or whether it doesn't come in, maybe until here. Maybe we bring it in a little bit later. Also these guys, these little down FX sort of sweep down, probably the best way to describe it. I'm going to use some of those in and around, but I'm not sure quite where yet. But I'll probably use this example, which is kind of at the end of a phrase, like somewhere like that perhaps. And this one we'll just place roughly anywhere for now, but we'll probably use another one of those. And this end of phrase version could be nice also over here in the outro somewhere, really sort of signaling the very end of the track. All right, so start of the break. Let's get that solo off, that will help. So I'm thinking in here it's a little bit empty. The emptiness can be good sometimes, but do we sort of still feel the kind of pulse of the track here? So here we're still with the groove. So maybe we just want a little bit of that, just a little bit. It's not too awkward that if you were dancing, you would go into a big hole here and kind of feel that all the energy and the groove was lost. But what I might try is bringing this percussion, this closed hi-hat, all the way over, and perhaps just bring the automation right down so we virtually hardly hear it, but just maybe get a little tick from it. To go that far back. So we just have to find the sweet spot with the automation. Or what I might do, alternative to that, let's go backwards because it is a different pattern. Let's maybe stretch this further over and let that sort of fade down a little bit more. And what we might do, let's maybe split it here. By the way, if you're joining the stream today, as always, please, if you've got any questions, do drop them in the chat. I'm very happy to answer them. And also just like normal Norman, say hello, let us know how you're doing. Let us know where you tuned in from, whether it's London, Sweden, America, where you're listening from. And as always, great to be sharing this with you. We're tidying up the end of the arrangement of this track, definitely doing some automation and maybe a rough mix as well to get it really right up to speed. So I split this for a reason. Let's focus on that. Give it a new color. Let's maybe make it a bit more contrasting so we know. And I'm just going to turn this into an offbeat pattern. And I've got another idea as well. Maybe I'll also put them on the downbeats as well. Let's try that. That will really give us the 4 on the floor pulse. Okay, it's nearly there. Let's just bring this bit up a bit. So we kind of lose it about here somewhere. So what I'll do, I'm just going to go backwards a little bit. So I'm going to put a point there because I'm kind of happy with where it starts. Okay, so somewhere here. Okay, and let's adjust this. I kind of like that it changes from the rhythm of this pattern to this pattern. I kind of think that sounds interesting. So we'll keep that because for a second I was thinking to just copy this over, but I'm trying to do a little bit of a rebuild here. So if you're wondering what I'm sort of sculpting and working on at the moment, it's kind of rebuilding up a little bit of energy. So the lowest energy in this break is here at the moment, right? All the way down through there. And we're kind of doing a little mini build here, just trying to build back up a little bit of tension before it drops without it being too crazy. So we could also bring back the clap here We could bring back some kicks. We could bring back some filtered kicks. So let's see if we try in a moment also a bit of the claps or something like that. But I just want to dial this in a bit. Okay, let me bring this right over. That's pretty good. Just adding a bit of a clap again, just to maintain a little bit of groove there without it being the full clap. Could also try a little bit of delay on that. Let's see, have we already got any automation of delays on the clap? I don't think so. No. Well, let's maybe try using a little bit of the return, the B delay return. We can maybe sculpt in a little bit of delay on those. Okay, and now that we've got that and it's kind of working, it's giving me a little bit of shuffle and a bit of groove, bit of extra groove in there. So we're adding a bit more dynamics with this clap with the delay. We could automate or ramp that a bit. And we could go the other way. So let's try that. We'll try gentle from the start. Let's copy this breakpoint here to put it here. And now let's work on this final little fill here as well that I made roughly. That's what's white. Remember I was just speaking about that before. It reminds me that last week I just sort of threw that together, copied, pasted a bunch of claps. Now I'm going to sort of work on that and make it a nice sounding little roll of claps here. So let's consolidate them all together. Well, we don't want that. We'd like to try and keep them, if we can, separate. Let's just see if we can do that. No, we're going to cut each other off. Okay. So let's just see about that. Why is it chopping each other off? Probably because the notes are a little bit in front. Okay. So if we zoom in here a bit, we kind of need to have that without chopping the front off. And then we should be able to consolidate this into a clip because the claps are all a little bit head of the groove, let's say. It gives them a little bit more of a anticipated feel, more pushing, more driving. So now We can turn that into 1. Happy days. Bring this over, it doesn't make any difference. There can be a gap there. All right, so now I can kind of get in here, and what I'm going to do is play around with this a little bit. So what is lovely in 12 with the velocity down here in the velocity lane is we can do ramps here really quite easy. So if we do Command A, select all our notes here, we can come down here and we can ramp our velocity like that, which is nice. So we can kind of build this up from a softer little roll, or we could actually even kind of come down in the middle and then go back up again. So we might have to ramp down the original claps that lead into this, but let's try something like this. Okay, let's just stand back out a little bit so you can hear a little bit more. And we'll also mute this guy for a second. Okay, and also I want to take off the delay, which is what's kind of causing a bit of a chaotic sort of sounding section here at the moment. So we're just going to get rid of that return delay after this last clap here, or this one. We don't. That's better. Let's try the reverse in there as well. Okay, so we've got this little roll kind of thing happening. We've got the velocity now on it. We could also play around with pitch, could be an option here. So even with the claps, we could kind of try a little bit of lower pitch claps sort of working their way along a bit. It's a bit of extra variety. So it's just got like a little bit of a right, it's just got a little bit of vibe to it. So if we put all that back on the same C3 where we've got just the original pitch of the sample, we don't have that kind of little fill that we've got now. That's a bit more interesting because I've just given it a bit of a different feel to if it's like this. Kind of like something like that. I think kind of interesting, right? So it could have been as it was, but that just gives it again a little bit more sauce, a bit more vibe. All right. So let's now really dig into this last little bit here, because what we want is kind of get the energy right so that when it drops at the other side of this, it's going to be impactful. So let's see what we can remove from here. It's all going to be about what we take away, not what we add here, that's going to add up to it dropping harder on the other side. So maybe the closed hi-hats, they can come back a little bit further. Let's try that first. And what else have we got in there? We've just got this one bendy note. The noise sweep down here is sweeping away. So let's kind of just listen to that. Okay, so what I can hear a fair bit of is still the synth, I believe. So we just need to dig into that, see what we've got in here that's kind of carrying through there, and we're going to cut it away or filter it away so that it'll be the chord pad here. Okay, so but if we take this further away, so yeah, I think the closed hi-hats can maybe even come earlier. Or we go back for a second, they just sweep down earlier here, something like that. And you might be thinking, wow, this guy's crazy. He's so fussy about what he's doing here. And I'm just doing little micro detailing at the very end of this break. But this is a crucial part of getting the tension and release right and break building. And if we don't do this, we just end up with this kind of very weak transition or movement from break to drop. And these are all the secrets, or not secrets, but the ways that we need to sort of go in and remove what we can. We could also sweep away a lot of frequency with, say, filters and cut things away and make sure that just what's playing in this space here has the tension that's leading us to the payoff, which will be the drop when everything comes back in. And so actually sometimes at the end here, having even just a bit of silence, like a pause of with just tails of reverbs and things, can be really, really nice for building that tension. So we're trying to do that. So at the moment, we're kind of removing stuff and using automation to kind of pull that right back. And there's still things that can come out of here. I think I'm going to bring the chords back. But again, they've got automation on them, I think. Let's have a look. We should really see it if it was there. So actually, we probably don't in that case. And if that's the case, then what we're going to do here is bring these last chords, so we can probably even split them here, but these ones here. We could try a few things actually. One thing could be, let's have a quick listen. So I'll just remove a few things so we can kind of hear what happens here. So let's just take out a closed hi-hat for a second. We can take out the atmospheric vocal chops. So maybe here, let's go and visit a bit of one here. Copy that over to there. And one already is the triads without being triads, right? So it's a simplified little chords, and I'm thinking maybe even just to stretch just some notes in here. So I'm trying to break this chord down to being less than it is here. Yeah, that's kind of the idea. Let's dig even into that even a bit further. Perhaps we can just turn this almost into, well, we could for sure, but maybe let's see if it works or not. We could turn this into almost like a drone where it's literally just, you know, maybe similarly to the bendy FX, it just kind of steps through some notes. Okay, so this one, maybe we'll try the D. we go. So we're just rewriting a little tiny phrase there just to bring that chord progression instead of it slamming away like it was. And these, again, these are the little tips that we do as, you know, as trying to look for that professional sort of sound. Is the normal thing we might do is just drag those chords over and let it keep going and let it start again on the other side. But it's all these little details like this that are going to add to a bigger payoff where we are hearing more impact when we come back on the other side. I'm going to bring that over here just because I want to try out in here. So I'm going to consolidate those together, just a different note or two. So I was using this top note here. Let's just see what it sounds like with the F sharp instead. No, maybe the B. Or we could go to another note in the scale. Let's have a try on the A. Okay, and how does that sort of sound with the chord in front? Probably okay. Yeah, I don't like it high. It's a bit high for me, so I'm going to try and play around with it as a lower note. Oh, that's too low. Okay. So let's try our friend C sharp. Or let's maybe try that. There we go, because it kind of fits now with the bendy FX a little bit better, as long as it also plays ball with the chords in front. Okay, let's bring the other stuff back in now. And in the end, I am actually going to try here one thing. I'll try this 2 clip out. I'm just going to bring it in here, drag it over there for a second. What I want to do, I'm going to lock the automation in place for a moment, so I don't want to take the automation with me. Just want to copy, drag the clip over there. I'm just going to drag this out just to check what that's like. Yeah, I think I'm going to prefer to sort of keep the 3 pattern going, and we'll just work then on taking that out at the end here. So I'm just going to check one thing. I'm going to pop that back. Let's go backwards for a second. Way back here. So where do I remove that? Yeah, okay, got it. Right before there. Okay, great. So we're going to take that out. We're going to bring this all the way over to here. And we're just going to adjust this automation a little bit, but it feels a bit more kind of connected to what everything else that's going on. We're sort of bringing it down, rebuilding it. Nice. Now we're getting that tension that I was looking for in there. So for the moment, I also was thinking could have more, like I didn't turn this into sort of a snare roll type of track here, but it could be with a clap or a longer snare roll. So this kind of idea that I started here with this little clap fill, that could be a lot longer if we wished. It could come all the way back to almost where I've got this loop, and it could be really long if that's the sort of style of, you know, ending of the break you want here. So with this vocal here, what I want to try and do with that is I'm going to pop a filter on that just for this last little one here. So I'm going to drop an auto filter on the vocal track. I'm going to make sure that we automate, first of all, where it switches on and off, because we don't want it slapped over the whole track. So we're just going to turn it on for the moment, just for this last little vocal here. And on that one, we're going to actually sweep out the low end a bit. Let's just try that number for a moment. Quite like that. And what is the difference with that if it's there or not there? Let's make it a bit, there we go. Thin it out a little bit, get rid of any low end or bass in it. So that'll help again. That's another way. So basically what I've been doing so far, we'll bring back the automation to turn it on and off. We've just kind of made it a steeper sweep here. What I was explaining before, essentially I've been using lots of removing here and a bit of automation to kind of get this area to have the tension I'm looking for. Another way you can do a lot more removal of tension here, or create tension, should I say, is also to do lots of filtering where we sweep out the low end and sweep down the high end. So we could actually take this whole break here and go to the master track, for example, could be an option, and we could put a filter on the master track. Let me just drag that way. Why don't you want to drag down there? There we go. We could put a filter on the master track, and we would open that up, and we could automate that to be on off down here across the whole breakdown, such as this. I'll do an example. I'm probably not going to use this, but we could have that on, and let's say we turn it into a low cut, and we sort of do some automation of that, so we know that the filter, let's just go back there, device is on off, and then we could also grab the frequency here, and we can kind of play around with that, where we start with a bit of low end, sweep it away. We could ebb and flow, but we're really going to cut it away. Definitely at the very end, we don't want much at all. Maybe we have a bit of low ends, then not much, and then a bit comes back. So you could do something along these lines. This is just kind of rough, and that's going to go across the whole, all the different sounds and instruments. Let's get out a solo so we can hear it. So a classic move, right? Thinning it out, cutting away all the low off everything. If it's on the master track, that is. Feel it bringing it back. That was actually quite nice where it kind of just happy accident there. It was coming back in with the little bit of the bass that was left in the break, and you could kind of really feel that. So it feels a lot more like DJing there. Cutting the filter, bringing it in and out. So by all means you can do all that as well, right? It's a classic move, and you could also have another filter here doing the high cut as well as the low cut. And then at the very end here, we would sweep everything away, strong low cut. It's clearing out all the energy for the drop. Right, so I'm not going to go for that move, but that's a classic move. And if you don't want it across all the instruments and sounds, by the way, then what you could do nicely there, so another tip would be, what we could do is just kind of group sounds, right? So we could go and put some of these elements, like grab all the drums and put those into a group, and then put that filter with that automation on it just over a certain group of sounds that you want to cut the low end away, rather than on the master track and cutting everything away. So I hope that helps. Just a little tip I thought to share there as another way to get some of this tension and eventually release into your project. And it's what the pros are doing all the time, right? To get this break to be a break. And break building isn't easy. If you're here in the stream with me, let me know in the chat. Do you find break building easy? Is it something you understand well? Do you find it nice and easy to get your breaks sounding the way you want them to? Yeah, let me know. And I must point out as well that everything that's white in here is going to be automated as well. So if I give you a quick example, we're going to do some automation in a little bit. I know that with this chord track here, this one over here, that this is going to be automated in here. That's going to give me further tension. So just let's say that I, for a second, map the filter to a macro. So let's do that so you can kind of hear what I'm going to do here. But I'm going to do this after I get to the very end of the track. I'm going to come back and do this. But let's click on the filter of the meld on oscillator A, and I'm just going to map that to my MIDI controller. So there we are. We've got my little icon saying that I've mapped it, and then we're going to go away, and now I should be able to move that filter around, and this is definitely going to be done organically as part of this break to get more tension. Right, so all of that's just one sound that's going to happen in there. I've got white on my bass, I've got white on this noise sweep, so they are going to be part of that automation that is going to also really take that sound in a new area. So I just wanted to help you understand that this is what we're doing now, is the framework, and then we go in my way. I will go in and do all this automation after, and I want to bring a MIDI controller in, because things like the bass line and things like the lead sequence, they do have a bit of automation on the filter, but it's a ramp, okay? And if you draw that in with the mouse, the difference of that with the mouse and a ramp, sometimes that's a good application and it does what you need it to do, but it's not got a lot of feeling to it. It's just, it sounds like a ramp to me. So I want to change that. I want to change that to a morphing, ebbing, automated cutoff, so that it's got that vibe to it, just like you were hearing here. So if you weren't actually hearing what I was doing just a moment ago, let's just listen to that while I do this, just isolated. And that's just one element. That's just the filter cutoff on that sound, right? So we might choose to bring some other things into that on other tracks, on the same track, but just the automation of this with the MIDI controller, it's going to give me a lot different feeling to that part. So I know that this break is going to get more attention, more interest through the automation that I'm going to do in another step. So for now, I'm just placing the parts where I want them. I'm getting rid of energy where I kind of want energy gone here. We've done a bit of a mini rebuild in this area. We've got the trough or the lowest sort of energy area here. We've got a continuation over here of what happened before, which is also kind of something I will do. Like everything that went on over here, I know I'm in solo, so we'll stop that for a moment. Everything that happened here, I've kind of carried a bit of it into here, but slowly breaking that down and removing it. And we could also sweep down the bass here, sweep down the clap. There's lots of little tuning we can do, but the basics are there. All right, so let's play this break through. I think it's pretty good now. And then we're going to work on the other side of what happens. There's something here not quite right yet. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just try, I think it's the chords that bothered my ear a little bit. So maybe again, I'll just try breaking them down to the clip 1 here, just to see what that sounds like. I'm just trying to bring down the energy a bit on those. I could also hear the clap here, by the way. This was something also, might as well try it while I was thinking here. I'm not kind of sold completely on it like it currently is. That is where I kind of just recently put it in and automated the delay across here. I kind of feel like this also could be just more effective right across there, but with the filter really sort of sweeping it away and then bringing it back. Similarly, just really to what is happening with the hi-hat. So if we were to do that, let's maybe save ourselves deleting stuff here. We'll just duplicate the clap down so we've got a second copy of it. And let's say we just wipe out up to there. We could have a hybrid as well. We could kind of use a bit of both ideas. But we bring this over to sort of here, and literally I could click on the filter frequency in the instrument itself, get that as an automation target. We can get rid of delay here, bring that up. What I was thinking is to sort of sweep it. So let's put some breakpoints in here. Sweep it down similarly to the hi-hat, and then sort of rebuild it up a little bit. Let's make sure we've got the right clap track switched on. It's going to give us a different tension here. Let's leave a bit more of the clap, so if we're listening to it on its own or just with the hi-hat, so you can hear what I'm doing without a lot of the other sounds getting in the way. I'm just darkening it up, pushing it into the background on purpose. And let's maybe have it not rebuild at the same point as the closed hi-hats, so it does its own thing. Right, so let's try that with everything together. So I'm just kind of thinking that instead of the broken with the delays. Rustic, very good morning to you. Hope you're doing well. If you are tuned into the live stream and you're enjoying, we're break building here. We're just getting the last bit of the break to the outro of this part 4, a series of 4 videos where I went from a new idea to, in theory, an arranged and automated track. That's what we're getting the work done here. I'm spending a bit of time here, but this is the sort of detailed work that adds to the payoff. It adds to the dropping and the breaking and all the good things that we're looking for to happen here. So again, you might think this is a lot of fussing and some things are very subtle, but it's the key to getting this to kind of make it work. All right, so let's put everything in. Reminding ourselves as well, we've got automation to go on top of this with the MIDI controller. It's going to elevate this tension as well. Okay, so I want a little bit more so we can feel it. So where is that sweet spot? Where is the engaged point where? Maybe I'll just get rid of this breakpoint here and we'll fine tune it. Okay, here I don't want it too strong yet. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that for now. Also, I think that bringing in 1 here on the chords, it just helped my ear transition in this little section here to this last little piece that I wrote not that long ago, just to kind of bring the chords down so they're kind of fading in this area here, and they kind of work well with the bendy FX, these 2 tracks together. They're kind of giving this little bit of a right, and we could probably even knock that last one of these off as well, potentially, just so there's again a bit more silence there. I did like it, but it might be... Right, and yeah, just coming back to the chords, I'll play from here. Max emotion, we're sort of bringing it down here was the idea, segueing. So I think it was good to copy this in here, just to bring it down a bit, so it wasn't quite so drastic. All right, great. Let's get out of solo. When we come back in, we might have the filter more open on the bass a bit. So what we're missing in this whole is either perhaps a bit of a continuation of the chords, or perhaps more of the vocals, the vocal atmosphere I've got going down here. So perhaps that could be all the way from starting from there. So let's just make sure that there's nothing also that's kind of automated here that isn't working. For example, you know, looking through what I've done in the breakdown, we want to make sure this kind of stuff isn't happening, right? So let's have a look here, and I'll tidy that up a little bit. We'll work our way down. The bass, I've just reopened that back up a bit. We're going to automate that with a MIDI controller in a little bit, so we're going to get stuck into that. Let's drag the bass over. That's going to keep going for a while. Maybe a change here or there. So the clap, let's make sure the automation. Okay, so that was the clap with the delays. I'm going to stick with this. I think it works. I don't know what you guys and girls thought if you were here when I did both, but I'm kind of feeling that that sort of just adjustment, filtering it down and kind of bringing it back up with a little rebuild worked for me. So let's take the clap copy all the way down, pretty quite easily delete it. We'll just put it all the way down the bottom there, and let's just switch it off. Don't really need it, but we'll have it there just in case something goes wrong. Right, back up to here. The closed hi-hat, this, for example, it needs attention, right? Because actually, were we hearing it here? I don't believe so. Right, and that was the problem, because I was feeling something was missing energy-wise, and it's because I filtered it out here. Also, the auto filter, it's kind of switched on the whole time. I haven't turned it off. It's been on since the very start of the track, and it's still on. We could turn it off here. That would be one option, but I've automated again later. So what we might do in that case, and also this 2 clip, not really using that anymore. That can also go away. There's plenty of the clip 2 if we need some of it, so that can disappear. We're on 1 at the moment, which is, as you can probably see just by looking at the MIDI, it's a layered hi-hat. It's got 3 different hi-hats that all play together in the pattern. And our pattern changes. 2 is just a couple of the hats together, different pattern, and 1 is even, or 3 should I say, is even more stripped. Right, so we've got plenty to play with there. So we could turn the filter off here, but I think we'll just leave it on, and we'll bring our automation back up. So let's get rid of those breakpoints. Let's get rid of that breakpoint, that breakpoint, that breakpoint. And where are we going to come in at? You know, maybe we'll come in at somewhere like we came in before. You can always go back and take a look at that. So maybe we do something like that. Just copy and paste the breakpoint there, and we'll do a bit of opening it up as we go. And maybe we do something like this. We go 1 to 2 to 3. We're stripping that pattern down. Now we should have a bit more energy on the other side. And this is another thing that we should sort of maybe talk about here. And that is that when you look at your drop, this area here, it should be quite similar typically to what happens here. Okay, energy wise, it's sometimes it's an exact mirror, but it's probably going to be very typical, because what happens here, this area here, all of that was the build, right? That was where we were building up to the break. So on the other side of it, we want to get pretty close to that. So now it's better with the closed hi-hat in there than it was a moment ago, and that was what I was missing, because I was thinking, oh, I need to copy something into that area from before. But right now, I'd actually quite like to live without the chords, and I'd quite like to try bringing in this vocal atmos in this second half of this area rather than straight away. It could start here, for example, but I'm just thinking it'd be nice to change where I've got it. I'm going to delete that clap track. It's just a distraction. We don't need it. I'm going to bring this down a little bit. Yeah, kind of nice coming in the second part there. So let's do a bit of tidying up down here as well. When it comes in, what on earth is happening with the automation here? Well, we need to take a look at that. So I previously had some nice little delays that come on, switch on and off. So we might continue that theme over in here. So we might just copy that, paste that there. What about this kind of transition of energy here? Again, thinking similar to closed hi-hat, let's have it start up, which is again often something I'll do there as well, is we're going to have the energy up on this side of the break. Matching, as I said, we're coming back in with energy and then we're going to sweep it away towards the outro. So in this case, we're sweeping it down going into the break. Sorry, here we sort of built up, swept it down in the break, and now we're going to start up and sweep it down as we go towards the outro. All this stuff over here we're not using, so again, doesn't really matter. Get rid of lots of these breakpoints. We might delete these guys in a bit as well, but yeah, they're not hurting too much. What is this delay feedback here? Set at 21 right across the track, so we kind of can leave that breakpoint. Let's put it there. Okay. We've copied that over, no worries. We've got the automation over. We've got our filter on. We haven't switched it off. And the delay device on, so both of those are on. So that should sound about right. Let's bring our height of our tracks back up. The noise riser, we could have a noise down here. So let's just try that. What we could do is take one of these and put it here. And we might just do the opposite. It could be shorter. Just something to try. Not sure if it's necessary. Okay, so we might adjust that so that we have that more open than closed here. Let's bring that up a bit. So when it comes back in at the drop, our filter on that synth's a bit more open. So I'm going to bring this down a bit, not as open when it comes in here. All right, so let's work on this a little bit. I kind of want this, maybe where this vocals come back in. It's building nice energy there, but I think I will fade it down from there. Let's close it off a little bit more. What did I have here? Let's maybe just copy that breakpoint over. By the way, if you are tuned in and watching the stream, do let us know how you're doing and where you're tuned in and listening from. I hope you're finding part 4 here, getting it ready for the dance floor, getting this automation and outros sorted out and some automation coming up. Hope you're finding it interesting. A lot of the detailed sort of work. Right, I think I moved the bridge idea along a bit, so we've brought in this nice kind of new motive, this kind of arpeggio sequence that's kind of come storming in for the first time there. It kind of sounds really nice. It's tempting to sort of like not try and close this track down too fast here, but I think we've got definitely the drop working nicely. And now we're going to try and remove a few things a little bit gradually. Yeah, so something like this. So again, in the bridge, I'm taking away the kick drum. I took the bass out for a second. And this is going to give me a little segue towards the outro. So my idea is I'm going to lose the open hi-hat at the end of the bridge. We're in a new closed hi-hat pattern. We're breaking down the energy towards the outro here. So also with the atmosphere, maybe I lose that at the very end of the bridge here. So let's have a look again at the automation a little bit. And we'll sort of dial that in as we come into this bridge. The open hi-hat, I'm going to sweep away. Might be able to do that a few ways, but for now we could use, again, the high cut of the instrument itself. So let's kind of automate that, get some breakpoints in. We're going to sweep that away in here. The percussion, going to leave through the clap. Let's have a listen. And I'm thinking maybe this sequence comes out as well. Okay, so we can get a few, we've got lots of little reverse sounds and little transitional pieces that we haven't used for a while as well, that support the groove and do little transitional moves between phrases and sections. So we might have that little reverse clap there. We might have one of those kind of in here as well as the groove goes along. We've also been using open hi-hats a bit like that, but yeah, let's listen to this. Split the clap here as well. Also the closed hi-hat. Okay, so let's see what this sounds like with that out. Or it's going to rebuild, or it's going to continue to fade out on the other side. I'm not sure yet on that. Okay, we're going up here, so let's say we're not going up here. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking, really. Let's take out some percussion here as well. That was the little switch I was looking to do there. So pretty happy with that. That was kind of what I had in my head. So what I'm kind of doing here is thinking about from the end of the drop, what I was going to sort of fade out, excuse me, or phase out. So I'm taking away the open hi-hat. That's giving me lots of nice energy here after the drop. The bass is going to come back in, the kick is coming back in, the clap probably almost all the way to the very end, the closed hi-hats to the end, the open's gone, the percussion's gone, and now this synth, this lead sequence that we've had for a bit here, that's out, and I think it sort of hands over nicely to the chords, keeping the motive, and the vocal Atmos is out as well. So I think we can really get ourselves towards the outro now and kind of wrap things up somewhere around where I've just ended the loop. And let's say we take out, again, all of this stuff over here, auxiliary stuff, just drag it further away. in the end, we don't really need any of that stuff to my knowledge. And again, we'll just kind of make sure that we understand what's happening with all our automation and things like that. We might copy a bit of the kick across where I've filtered it. So we're copying some of this, which has got the automation with it. So I'll take the padlock off and we'll option drag some of that there. So we could have a little bit of kick with the filter, a bit of clap, bit of the hi-hats into here. What's going on with the bass? Does that come out there? Let's see. Maybe we're filtering it down. Get rid of that automation there. Open hi-hats gone. All of those things are gone there. This doesn't need to be here. Maybe we have one of those right over there. Also one of these little reverse clap transitional type things at the very end. Chords across. We've stripped down to the one. That's kind of cool. So now again, if I've made sort of some part here, which is like a bit of a custom sort of part just to do the end of the break or something, they could be really nice here. Option drag, not remove from there. Let's try that. Better. Also, what else can we grab that we've done already here? This guy. So what's going on with this frequency lane here? Nothing. So let's get rid of that. And let's copy that. Similarly, option drag, so we get all the automation. So we're going to have one of those there. We might also have one of those here. Emilio, very good morning to you as well. So if it's morning where you are, where are you, Rustic and Emilio? You must be maybe over in the United States, Canada, somewhere that way. So here it's around 4 in the afternoon. I'm in Ibiza in Spain, just for those of you who are not sure where I'm streaming from. And it's, well, winter, sunny day, pretty chilly here, but not as chilly as it is in other parts of Europe, or for sure in the northern hemisphere. All right, so concentrating a bit here, or I'll lose my way. Right, we've got all of that. The bendy FX, this guy. Let's get that over there because that kind of makes a nice, again, downwards kind of part at the end. Most of this stuff is going to stay out. It's not going to make a reappearance. Let's delete all that automation over there. It's just distracting. A noise sweep could be kind of nice here, actually. So maybe my down sweeper, let's maybe try that here. Make it longer. That might make sense. Because I didn't end up using it here. There was just no point, really, in my opinion. It wasn't adding anything there. It was just adding frequency and energy, which we don't need. So we might try this here. From Mexico, muy buenas tardes. Bueno, buenos días entonces. Good afternoon to you. That's awesome, Emilio. Hope it's all good in Mexico where you are. And thanks a lot for tuning in. And thank you for your kind words there. Glad you're enjoying the sounds here. This is part 4, by the way. So if you are new to this stream, there are 3 parts. 6 hours of video up to this of the idea from its very beginning, 0 from scratch, then from the loop in the session view to the arrangement view, and then to almost to this section, which today I've just been doing the main break and then the drop and the outro, and we're going to get some automation done before we're going to call today a wrap, and then the next step would be mixing. So okay, so bass isn't just going to come out like that because that doesn't work, but we could maybe fade it. Just checking the comments there. Emilio, are you agree with the idea of evolving every 8 bars or 4 bars? That's my internal debate. Very difficult. It's a good question you propose there. That I don't think there's a magic answer. I think it depends a lot on the genre, on the music, the audience. I think what I've learned working with many different artists over a long period of time is that we all kind of have a different threshold a bit on when something is too repetitive, right? So somebody can often show me something that's 16 bars long and they're in love with it, and for me it's too repetitive, there's not enough change in it. And then someone could show me something that's 8 bars, and maybe, as you said, it should be every 4 bars. If we take an example of some other great producers, one that I really am a fan of musically and also the mind of the man is Patrice Baumel. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, Emilio, or others of you are, but he talks about every bar having a reason to exist. So I think in this case, I was actually, when I started to arrange it, doing most of this by feeling rather than actually trying to do it by looking at numbers and bars. But I do think 8 bars, if you split 8 bars into 2 4 bars, there's an A and a B to it. And I think there should be little subtle changes and things going on that keep your listener engaged and understanding where you're taking them, and so they don't lose interest in the track. Or they don't lose feeling in the track or interest in it. That's what we want to do. But as humans, we're very quick and very intelligent at picking up patterns. And so if we figure out a pattern and it doesn't change enough, we get bored and suddenly we're on Instagram scrolling or doing something else. You've lost our attention. So too much chaos, not good. Too much repetition, not good. Either of those, we're tapping out. Too much chaos, we can't follow either. It's just way too crazy, right? If it's too repetitive, we get bored in between those lines. So depending on the track, this track doesn't have crazy stuff going on, but lots of these little reverse claps, little open hi-hats that I was using here and there. These are sort of ear candy, right? That's literally all they are. They're just there to catch a little bit of a change. Also little things like I've automated on this percussion, little delays that switch on and off, which give that, little variation. So when you start adding all these little details, these can be, just adding little bits of change. And I've copied and pasted, but we could also vary up that automation so they would all be different. So you can add a lot of detail. Similarly down here in this vocal, if we just listen to, say, the automation for a second in one of these clips here, this delay automation is just giving what is a static vocal a little change. Just that tiny little skippy delay, right? And that's giving it a little change here. And if that's not there, it's very quickly, we would have been super bored with that. And actually looking across here, while we're there, thanks Emilio, I need to copy some more of that over, just so I keep, well, I don't need to, but I want to keep that theme running a little bit across there as well. So all these little ear candy things, I think when you're arranging a track, be prepared when I don't do any of that ear candy stuff when I'm over here building my idea. That's all a reaction to what I'm hearing in here and feeling, the ear candy, the little things that give me little subtle change. And trust me, we don't need to add anything here. We've got more than enough stuff in this track that we can automate, change, tweak to give ourselves ear candy and little subtle changes every 8 bars or every 4 bars, as you said, or every 2 or 1. It's up to you, but don't do chaos and don't do too repetitive. That's all I can really say. So I hope you find that helpful. Let's crack on here. So for example, little ear candy, bit of an open hi-hat. try actually, let's go a bit crazy here. Let's try the end of the main break. This little, let's split this here. I might as well just turn that into a little clip, I think. This guy. Let's try some of that. Maybe over here. When does the variation or the automation occur between bars? Yeah, it seems 8 bars is a good pace. Super helpful. Yeah, no worries. The automation, again, it doesn't have to be, don't think too much about numbers and where you place it, more just by feeling. It's like that open hi-hat. It could live here, but it could live elsewhere in the groove, right? So I just dropped that open hi-hat here, but it could work in so many places in between the closed hi-hats, here, 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 on the downbeat, so you're emphasizing that. So I would try and do those little ear candies, similarly with the delay. They can be adjusted a lot. So I'm just going to put that back where I had it, but yeah, a lot of that's by feeling. So these, for example, these little automated delays where they switch on, I could very easily take that, and to surprise you, instead of it happening there, it happens here. And right, and that would be a good move if I could use that as a way to vary up this pattern of automation here. Right, so yeah, don't be afraid to not worry too much about yeah, exactly where you put it. Just think about like where you think about even surprising sometimes by putting it somewhere else. Sometimes you can copy and paste a theme, like always in the same location, but sometimes it's nice to switch that up a bit. So I'm just going to make an adjustment here. I think I'll leave the oscillator one on, and we'll just use the frequency to remove this part. So let's try it like this. Just adding little bits of candy. And I'm not even worrying too much about where I'm putting it. It's landing on a beat or in between beats, but it's a theme that I started very early on in my previous streams, so it's something we can use and repeat as we feel we would like it. All right, even the riser is it's kind of working pretty good. We can pull that back a long way. Yeah, I'm just wondering whether this stops abruptly or I filter that a little bit, just so it's a little bit smoother. Just a little tweak or two here with the automation. Again, that doesn't have to go quite so long here. We kind of got everything out. I kind of am finding this okay, that synth just literally comes out there. But an option could be, maybe I'll just put a little delay on the end here of it as a way to fade this out, so automate this a little bit. Yeah, just a little delay just to send it. Maybe we can even make that stronger. Yeah, that would be better done with its own kind of delay, because then we could automate the feedback. But for a placeholder, I think that could be an idea here, just to have a little crescendo at the end where that instrument comes out. All right. So now, ladies and gents, I want to show you a little bit of the things that I wanted to automate earlier with a MIDI controller, just so you can see what that's all about. So I kind of marked a few clips here that are white, and they've got kind of automation of filters at the moment, but they've been drawn in with the mouse and some breakpoints. And I'd quite like to, again, let me just write in this clip here, we're going to automate the filter frequency here. And we're going to do it with a MIDI controller, because I'd kind of like a really nice organic feel to that, instead of a very kind of automated breakpoint ramp, which is what we have, but it sort of sounds like that to me. It doesn't sound like a nice kind of felt organically automated filter here. So we're going to do that on the bass up here, we're going to do it on this synth here, and we're definitely going to do it on this chord as well in the break here, so that any filter action is with the with the MIDI controller. So what we might do here also is consolidate all these three together as they're one now, and keep it white. So again, if you missed earlier in the video today, the white is like one of the ways I use as a notepad sort of system to remind me anything that's white needed some editing and work to be done on it. And so that's what I'd like to do now. So let's look at, first of all, this particular track. Start with the bass, figure out what we're doing here. So oscillator 1 is only off in the beginning there. Okay, that's kind of clear. The filter switching on is just to do that. That's an auto filter. Great. So all of those automation lanes can be left as they are. The main one I want to play around with is the instrument itself, which is doing this across this kind of section here. So what we could do if you wanted to sort of do a comparison, we could also like duplicate this bass track down, switch one of them off, and then we're going to essentially kind of start automating this one with the drift here, and we're going to do it essentially with the MIDI controller. So let's put the lane down a bit. So we've got a separate lane for it, and let's clear all of this. So ciao, ciao. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go into MIDI map mode, and we're going to grab the frequency cutoff of the drift down here, the synth, and we're going to give it a macro. Let's choose that macro there. There we go. So that's now mapped to our MIDI controller. There we have it. And if you want to set ranges so that you keep the min and max ranges, so you don't go below where you had it set. So what am I speaking about there? Let's go back a step. Before we do that, let's go back. Command Z way back here. You'll see that the frequency cutoff is 27.8, right? So if we were to sort of essentially bring up the mapping mode, so if we were to put it something like, you know, one way to do this is to group the instrument. We could do that, and we could right click on the frequency and map it to macro 1. Yeah, okay, so let me just take off the mapping first. So we're just going to delete this. Go back a step. Okay, now we're going to map it to macro 1 over here. And then what we can do, because we're doing that, is we can open up this area. And now you can actually, before you start, go into the min box here, and you could say, I don't want to lose 27.8. That's the minimum value I want to go down to. And then you could also set a max value if you wanted, just so you're setting the range of where that automation can begin from and where it can go to. So a lot of people think to themselves, well, how am I going to know where that was in the beginning? Well, this is a way to control that a bit, right? So now we understand that we've set our minimum range. We're not going to go below that. And now when I start turning that macro in a second, when I map it, it's going to move from that point. So just wanted to point that out. So now I'm going to map the macro instead of the frequency itself. So let's go over here, and we're going to turn on MIDI mapping mode, click on that, same macro, there we go, come out of MIDI map mode, and you should see now when I move it, it sits at 27.8. Great, it's at that value. I know that's my lowest value, and I'm going to go up from there, and I'm never going to lose that. I'm not going to be in the dark trying to think, where was I? Where was the filter set before I started trying to do automation? Next step, we are going to come in somewhere. We don't have to be right at the point where the white clip is. We might come in a bit earlier, but what I want to do is make sure the automation record arm is on up here, this little guy, the very top. I'm also going to click the plus button just so we don't do any overdubbing of any MIDI clips or anything like that. We're just going to make sure that we leave our MIDI alone. And now we can get stuck in. So let's say none there, and we should see down in this lane in a moment some action when we start. We can actually get rid of that, and we'll do a new one down here, because that's right, because it's now in a macro, it looks different. Okay, so none there, it's down here, as you can see. So now we're going to just come in here somewhere, hit record. We're just going to move ourselves a little bit, just so we know we're working. This will sound not that different for now, because it essentially was quite closed here, not much movement. It's after the break that I want to sort of get some action happening. Hi, Andre. Just getting myself in the vibe again from the other side when the bass comes in. Let's start again somewhere up here, and we come back in with the filter open a bit. Alrighty. Nice. So we can do another one of those, grab the next sound and do that. But there's such a difference to doing that. And if we don't like any of that, it's very easy to go back and over record that again. And you can do it section by section. Instead of a ramp with mouse points, we've got a very vibey, organic filter movement. And the more you get in the frame and the feeling of the track while you're doing that, the more that will react to other sounds in the track. Generally, I'll try to do that with my eyes closed, not on YouTube, etc., etc. But I'm sure you get the concept behind it. It's such a difference to what the overall track will feel like with a organic filter movement like that as the automation, as opposed to a ramp. Nothing against ramps, they have their purpose, but so does plugging in a MIDI controller and doing something like that. So let's get stuck into another one that's going to really benefit from that, and that is this cutoff of the lead sequence here. So let's just make sure we understand what's what here. We've got a bit of the analog automated, but not too much. So that's kind of up the top here. And we've got the auto filter automated. And by the way, I did a duplicate of the bass there. So if, in case we didn't like that, we could hear the difference. So let's actually try that. Let's just go up here for a second. And what I'm going to do, this is mainly for you guys and girls, let's do a quick little experiment here. Let's have some key mapping, and we're going to click 3, and let's give that a number, or one that I don't use too often. So I'm going to map to the same key, and we're going to jump between the two different automations somewhere around here, let's say. So this is with the ramp. Without the ramp. It's pretty subtle. I think I'd have to switch a lot of things off probably for you to hear it, but it's got this organic movement here on the drift instruments filter frequency versus a ramp. Okay, so that's what I did before when I put the breakpoints in with the ramp. I've followed a similar contour, but I've just done it complete by freehand, and it's freehand over here. It's quite different to what's happening here, but the main feeling is all in here, and it's kind of working in a completely different way now than it was. Right, so let's bring that bass clip, the duplicate with the ramp, down. We're going to definitely keep the organic one from my side of things. I'll just make sure I've saved the right one. Yep, in the track. And then down here, actually speaking of saving, I'm going to do a quick save here. Haven't done one of those, haven't had any crashes or anything nasty, but just in case. Let's say today is part 4 of a 4-part series, by the way. So if you are just joining this and seeing it for the very first time today, this track started in a live stream on January the 3rd, Friday. Stream 1. It then became part 2, which was taking it from the session view into the arrangement, and then there was part 3, which was getting right up to the main break and the drop. And today I've been doing drop, outro, and now a bit of automation, trying to get it to the point where the next stage would be a rough mix to final mix, and away we go. Playable track to test out. So I'm just going to save that. And now I'm going to do the automation of this particular synth here. And I'm going to automate the cutoff of the auto filter in this case. And let's see, because I'm just going to again do that same duplicate so that we can kind of preserve what we've got, switch that track off, and we're going to then, with the original, we're going to remove essentially. So we just have to be careful because there's 2 filter actions going on. We want to leave the analog one, I think, alone. So what happens when I turn off? I'm just going to see what this sounds like. When I delete this one, yeah, a lot. Okay, good. So it's the auto filter one that I want to sort of grab and do that again with the MIDI controller. So similarly to what we did a moment ago with the automation of the drift, we could put the filter here into a little effect rack. The difference being, again, as I said, people ask, like, you know, how do I control the range of the filter frequency? This gives us a lot more control than just automatically mapping the controller to the macro. Of course, that gives me the same movement, but now I could set a range, and it seems here that I do actually go from all the way down, completely closed, to all the way open. So in this case, actually, I don't really need to do that. But if I wanted to start at 115 and never go below that, mapping the frequency to a macro is going to allow me then to go into the ranges and set the min and max ranges for the macro. Big difference. So we don't need that. We're going to undo the rack. We can actually do it all just as is. How far back did I go there? Okay. Got myself a little bit lost for 1 second. We'll get that sorted in a moment. Auto filter, there we are, device on. And let's have another auto filter with the frequency. There it is. All right, so we're all back in the game. All right, so we want the device on. Yes, this lane, we're all going to clear away. I'm going to remember 1.15 because that's kind of where my ramp did start, but I'm not going to set that as a minimum range because obviously I want to go lower than that and I want to go higher at the other side. So we're going to clear that, and I'm going to map this to a macro. So let's do that next. Command M for blue. Let's put that on macro on my MIDI controller. Number 5 will do. So we'll click there, turn that macro. Great. So now we've got on 5 control, and we're going to bring that around to 1K. That seems like where I wanted to start that sound from. And I'm now going to do what we did just a moment ago. I'm going to start before the clip begins, somewhere here. Unsolo things. Turn on record. Move my macro so I can see that I'm there. Get it roughly to where I want to start from. Right, so there we go. And again, blank poster music. Hello, how you doing, my friends? You very good? All right, so just going to do a little tweak or two here. I'm pretty happy with that. Again, I'll review those things on a listen back, but essentially that now has a nice organic filter movement to it. And again, it's very easy to edit breakpoints. Go in here and we can also overdub, re-record any of this automation, right? We're not setting concrete. You can also do things like highlight and simplify the automation if you wish. There's all sorts of fun stuff. So if you look there and see, maybe we want to turn this into breakpoints instead, we can highlight this and you can see if I right click here, simplify envelope, you can bring it right down to just the points like that. And then you could go in there and do some little edits. Maybe there was just something tiny that didn't quite work for you, that you wanted to keep most of it, but just do a little change or two. Main account, how do you get good level between the bass and the kick? Oh, that's a tricky question. How do you get good level between the bass and kick? The balance, I guess you're speaking about. I mean, it's a track by track thing. There isn't really a easy answer that. It all depends on your instruments and the track you're doing. But let's just say one thing you might consider often with the kick and the bass, if you're thinking about levels, you'll generally find that the kick is a little bit louder than the bass. If we're talking volume level, then generally the kick is, in my track, it's probably like the anchor. It's the main loudest sound that everything else is set around it. And generally the bass is a little bit quieter than the kick. So if you're listening to those two together in this particular track, let's just do that for a second. That's the current balance in this track level wise, but there's a lot else going on in terms of like how the patterns interact with each other. So the bass is talking to the kick drum in this case. It's what we call a syncopated bass line. It's more or less, as if you look here, you can see it's kind of filling in and around the kick. They don't overlap too much, so they're having a nice conversation, which means they could actually be quite close in level to each other as they're working in and around each other. I hope that helps, but I think that's something for a good level between the bass and kick. Maybe you can expand a bit on what you meant by that, but that sounds like something that you first adjust with volume. You also, so just purely level, I think of volume. So I'm thinking of the level between the two, but there's a lot more to do with envelopes and the sounds and how they're playing together. So hopefully main account, that helps you a little bit. But if we do mix this track, if people would like to see that, then I can obviously go into a bit more detail about it if it's a mixing thing you're speaking about. But, you know, my bass and kick, they've been playing pretty much together since the beginning, almost as they are. And the automation I'm doing with the filter and the arrangement stuff I'm doing here, it's not really affecting the level. It's just bringing in and out the frequency of it. So it might seem like it's a bit going in the background and coming back. Yes, presence is changing, but that's because I'm filtering and I'm making it darker and brighter by opening and closing the filter. So as you can see, I've got a few. I'm going to delete the spare bass track. Don't need that anymore. I've got a few other things I wanted to automate. I'm also going to delete the extra lead sequence because we've got the one now with the organic automation. I'll just make sure that I've chosen the right one in both cases. Yes and yes. Excellent. And I've got, anywhere we see white is generally instructions for me to do something else. So we've got a couple of other things I wanted to take a look at. This one. So maybe we'll just go a little bit longer. We'll do the automation of this chord pad so you can hear what that sounds like, because this is pretty important to the break, the feeling of this break. And then we'll do a playback. The other ones down here, they might actually live with a ramp instead of an organic filter movement with the MIDI controller. like I've done with the others. They might actually stay as a ramp. It's just a noise sweep. And the other one that's white up here is this one here, which was just, again, to take a look at the frequency automation. But I think I've actually dialed that in to how I wanted it anyway, as I've been going along in the stream today, but I'll check that later. So let's do this one as a kind of bit of a last thing to do here. And then we'll do a bit of a playthrough where we are today and what we've got, as the next sort of stepping stone to this would be bounce it to audio, listen back, hear what we've got, see if there's any editing that needs doing, and then we would be moving it into the mixing phase. So let's set up for this. We're going to, again, pop into the instrument down here. We're going to grab this filter frequency here. So have I used it already? I don't believe so. So there's no ramp or anything in this case, which is great. So we don't have to duplicate it, or we don't need to do that or delete anything. Let's go into MIDI mapping mode. Let's, I see I already mapped something to it. I'm going to delete that mapping and start again, just to make sure that I don't adjust anything else elsewhere in the track. So just undo that. I'm going to choose a different macro. So I'm going to choose number 2. Great. Okay, so remember I'm on number 2. Now, Sibylle, again, if you're just joining the stream now, I mentioned before, how do we remember that the lowest point we wanted to go was 32.8? I was just looking at it a moment ago. What a great trick for preserving that is to change things, because as soon as I map that and I move my macro, I now can go lower than that. And I can obviously go all the way around to 20,000 hertz, but maybe I don't want to go lower than that. I want to make sure that I don't go less than 32.8. That's my number that I liked all through the track so far. So I'm going to put the meld in a instrument rack, group it, and I'm going to map the filter to macro 1. Okay, so I can't do that because of the mapping, the macro. So let's delete that. We'll do this first. Now I'm going to map that to macro 1. Great. And this is now what I'm going to map to my MIDI controller. Number 2. There we go. All right. So now the great thing is, by putting it in the rack, I can open up the mapping. So I just showed this a moment ago, and I can go in here and I can set my minimum range to 32.8 up here. And that means that now when I move that macro, I won't go below that. It's set. Great. So if you're wondering, how do I remember? How do I set that so that I, do I write that? I remember a day when I used to write that down on a bit of paper so that I could remember kind of where the end of the macro, I wanted it to go down, not below that. Now I can't go below that, if that makes sense. So I've got control of that. Blank poster music. I have a question. So within electronic music, there are so many ways to use synth presets. I recently heard this song and I'm unable to figure out on how the producer of the track made the synth. Just rereading your question. Yeah, I mean, that's one of those tricky things, isn't it? Always is kind of listening to something and not being able to figure out, I guess, how the producer made that synth. Perhaps you can drop the name of the artist and the track if you wish, Blank Poster Music, and I can have a listen, and you can say, check it out at minute whatever, but obviously not in this stream, but I could have a listen to it, and yeah, something like that. Maybe make a comment in the future, but a bit tricky. I obviously can't say anything at this point in time, but reverse engineering other sounds and trying to learn how they're made, that's a challenge for all of us. So interesting question. No obvious answer to it until heard and tried to figure out and break it down and understand what it was. But I have asked before, actually, if you ever want that to happen, then you can share things like that, and then I can take a listen, and if I can understand how it's made, we could even have that as a feature in a live stream. Okay, great. I'll take a little screenshot of that, Blank Poster Music. I'll check it out. Let me know where the instrument that it is, or where it is in the track, like at a certain minute, or is it the bass that we're talking about? Is it obvious? Is it like that? Is it the chords? Is it the lead synth? What is it? All right, let's get into this filter frequency here and record the automation of that. So once again, I'm just going to start a little bit in front of it. So we've got a bit of space leading up. I'm going to hit record. I'm on macro 2. Let me just check that I'm on the right macro. Yes, great. So we're going to start here. So hopefully you could hear with that, that was really critical to part of this break building. So since I started today finishing off this main break, that whole automation of that filter frequency on this meld, it's opening up what is actually automated in the matrix of the meld here, the frequency and the filter being modulated by LFO1, which looks like this. And so now we've got this really nice wobble on that sound. So what I was doing has just created, so if we listen to it over here, no automation, right? Here, all that vibe, right? So just on that alone, we're getting all this kind of tension, all this kind of rub, and taking our listener somewhere, transporting them somewhere. Nice. All right, so I wanted to get that one sort of done so you can see there's 3 examples of, you know, working with the MIDI controller and getting some real sort of proper feeling and connection and organic sort of vibe into the track by doing so. So I think what we'll do is we'll do a little bit of a playthrough, we'll do a save here, and then we're going to pick things up from maybe sort of, we don't have to go all the way back to the intro. I think we might just drop a marker, say here somewhere, and we'll just pick things up from there, and we'll walk our way through to what we've essentially done today, which is certainly obsessed and done lots of detail work on making sure the break kind of, I think it already made sense from the build, which was all of this. So all of this section here is our build, let's say. We could even put a marker on that and say, okay, that was the build up. Okay, all of that was the build over here. I was pretty happy with that from part 3. So the beginning of the break and the end of the build, that was already done. What I've really sort of fussed over today mainly was the end of the break and the drop into the drop here, right? So making sure that that was a payoff and that it works, and then built the bridge here and also then the outro, right? So we're going to do a little playthrough for marker 1. Let's have a save for sure. And if you've got any other questions, feel free to drop them. But we're just going to do a playthrough here. I was in solo. I'll just take that off and I'll resave it just as I don't really want it. And as I said, I would be 100%. Let's actually do it while we're here. Just gonna make a little adjustment or two. Let's put in the very front of the track here, let's put a bar or 2 of silence. Quick way to do that, when you've been working from the 1 all the way across here, a nice way to do that in Ableton, very efficient, is if we draw up here with our mouse top to bottom, make sure we've got all of the tracks in. We're going to then just use Command I on our keyboard, and we're going to insert silence, and that's going to bump everything over a whole bar. And so we've now got a nice bar of silence at the front of our track. And at the end of the track over here, we've already got a bit of space. Let's just have a quick listen. Yeah, I think by 22 there, everything's gone and drifted away to silence. So we're going to save that up again. Here we go. And now what we're going to do is we're going to bounce that out. I will bounce it afterwards actually, because I'm not sure what my levels are like. I've got a little bit of a limiter on here for YouTube. So as I'm playing through, I'm going to just take a little look at that. Just checking back at the chat. Blank poster music, absolutely. It's the lead synth all the chords. I'm unsure. The track is 4.34 long and revolves around the synth I was asking about. All right, blank poster music. I will check it out. Let's say if I have an answer to it or thoughts about it, if you tune in next Sunday to the live stream, 3 p.m. Central Eastern Time, I can let you know it's a thumbs up or not sure, but I'll check it out, okay? And we go from there. All right, so back over here, play through from around about here. Let's go. Yeah, so we don't need a limiter. Alrighty. So there's a few little things that you start to pick up when you step back and listen. So in this section here, the build, it's kind of a little samey. So there might need to be a little bit of a tweak or two in the two sort of halves of that. But literally, I think just a bit of ear candy or a little bit of a little switch up here or there, which nothing to add, no parts to be added from external or new tracks to be produced. We've got lots and lots of ways we can do that with things that we already have. We've got lots of auxiliary tracks, clips, variations that we haven't used, so no biggie at all. But I was just caught my ear, thought might do something there. Other than that, pretty okay with everything so far. So as I said, what I would do now is render it out, which is why kind of adding the sort of bit of silence at the start and making sure there's a bit of space at the end. So now I'm going to render it to an audio file, and that's when I would start, you know, listening back to it in the future and deciding how it works. But getting it out of the DAW, I'm not going to open up the project to listen to it and make notes or make thoughts about it. I'm going to do that 100% in audio now. And that's what I was also doing, checking in the session view. I was checking the levels. The mix seems, the rough structure that we've got right now doesn't seem to be too many issues, and there was no need for a limiter. It was actually kind of just below 0 dB ceiling as it was playing through. So if you've got any quick questions, let me know. Got to wrap the stream in a few minutes here. It's gone on a little bit longer today, but obviously it was great to have quite a few of you in the chat there asking some good questions. Normal Norman, Rustic, Emilio, Andre, Blank Poster Music, main account. Thanks a lot for tuning in. A2K77, hello, how are you doing so far? I'm doing great. How are you doing? We're just about to wrap up today. So if you're kind of jumping in now, you're at the very end of today's stream, but of course it's going to be straight up on the channel as a replay, so you can work your way through, if you like, what's happened in today's part 4, which has been further arranging from the main break to the outro. We've now got our arrangement structure. We've also done some automation. Anything else is just a little tweak here or there, automation wise. As I said, adding in any parts or changing things if I feel when I'm listening back in audio it doesn't capture me. That is the arrangement, and then it would be onto the mixing table and getting a nice rough to finalized mix done of the track. And I'd be interested to know if any of you are still here in the stream, would you like to see a mix down of the track? Is that something you wish to see? I have mixed down projects before in a YouTube stream, and it wasn't, to be honest, that popular. So I'm not sure if it's something that, because people don't like to watch someone sort of mixing a track, but just curious on that one. I might put a poll to my audience anyway, asking if people would like to see that. But yeah, that's going to be a wrap. As I said, there is a part 1, 2, and 3 of this. So we're now into 8 hours. And I did mention that at the start of today's video as well. Often people ask, how long does it take to make a track? Well, sometimes years, sometimes months if we don't know the purpose and we haven't figured lots of things out. But 8 hours to go from 0 to the arrangement and automation and then a bit of a mix. I think that's a fair judgment of how long I tend to spend when I had a clear idea from the start. And I've been doing it in 2-hour chunks with the live streams, and that's kind of how I do it probably in my own real time as well. Jump in, do a couple of hours and do the stages. 2 hours production, the idea, 2 hours arranging it a bit, another couple of hours working on the arrangement, and then a couple of hours mixing with give or take stuff in between. So very honest look at how long this could really take. Some people talk about doing stuff in a day. Yeah, you could think about it, it's 8 hours, you could do that in a day, but not very pleasant for me to do all those different stages fully focused on a track in one day. That's a lot. Like all the focus you put into the arrangement, all the focus you put into the automation or the structure or the composition, it's not really you know, going to work for me. I would be, you know, my brain and my concentration and everything gives it a beautiful 2 hours of focus, and then I think it's a good time to park it and come back to it. And also, guys and girls, get your stuff in audio, just like I've done now, and listen back in audio. Don't open the project, open it in audio almost from day one. start putting it in audio so you can really judge and understand where it's going, what it is, etc., etc. Have a fantastic Sunday, everybody. Andre, you're very welcome. Have a great Sunday, the rest of it. Next Sunday, 3 p.m. Central Eastern Time, we'll be back in here, maybe mixing, maybe doing something else. To be confirmed, but we'll definitely be here in a live stream. I'll put a link here at the end of the stream to the playlist of part 1, 2, and 3. So if you've missed something here or want to see how we got here, go check out our playlist. And I look forward to catching up with you all again soon. It's been good banter in the chat today. So take care of yourselves, keep creating, and see you soon. Bye for now. See you later. Ciao.